Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and witnesses, again, I apologize for being a little bit tardy, but I had a 9:30 House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing with Secretary of State John Kerry of the State Department budget, followed by Armed Services at 10 a.m. with General Breedlove on U.S. European Command. So I hope you'll bear with me. I got here as quick as I could. I do have a question for each of you, and Dr. Griffin, if you could please lead off. What do you believe the proper role of commercial space could be in the context of a stable, long-term NASA strategic plan?
Well, as I pointed out in my testimony, the first commercial cargoes for carriage to the International Space Station were signed under my tenure. So I'm a strong supporter of the utilization of commercial space purveyors in our strategic plans. That said, I think we've maybe a bit drifted off the path. When I use the term commercial to describe an enterprise, I'm talking about an enterprise such as I've run in the past, where you have to raise your own money, develop your own product, bring it to the market, and then you sell it for every dime that you can get. I'm not talking about enterprises where the government has to invest the lion's share of the money in order to earn the right to buy a ticket. And if the public record is examined, I think that you'll see that in recent years in our so-called commercial space portfolio, that's what's happened. The lion's share of the money has come from government. In fact, I'm not sure there's a share that the lion didn't have. So these types of arrangements I would call private-public partnerships, and I'm not always certain that we're getting the best deal on the public side of those partnerships, and I think we need to look carefully at it. The second thing that I would observe is if we were to be so fortunate as to have, again, a national strategic plan for what we want to do in space, it certainly should include as much contribution as commercial space providers can offer. But they need to offer what it is that the government wants to buy. It's not our purpose in government to figure out what our space program should look like so that commercial providers can sell what they want to sell. And again, I would say that the experience of recent years offers some guidelines in that regard. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, sir.
Colonel Collins or Ms. Chaplain, do you have anything to add?
I'll just add that, you know, the government is usually the one to push technology and discovery, and in all those areas, that's where the government role should be. When you have lower risk technology or something that's already proven that's needed, that is a good place to use Pathfinder types of commercial efforts where they can prove themselves and even take over some kinds of operations. If you look more broadly beyond NASA, commercial space is starting to play a bigger role in doing things like hosted payloads for government, providing bandwidth for DoD, and even running ground operations. There's all good areas for them to be playing in.
Yes, ma'am. Colonel Collins.
Sir, I'd like to just mention the space station as far as commercial space. I know this may sound like it's a crazy idea, but okay, the space station we know is funded to 2024, and the U.S. has to decide, are we going to fund that out to maybe 2028, or do we stop funding in 2024 and then put it into heavy lift or deep space? I believe that, having been in space, I believe that there will be a commercial interest in the space station. I can't really say timing-wise 2024, but there are plenty of tourists and people that have money that would love to go up in space and live on the space station. It is such a amazing, wonderful human experience. People would pay big money to do that. And if we could find a private company that'd be willing to take over the space station and sell it like a hotel, sell space up there like a hotel, we may be able to kind of wean ourselves off the space station and get NASA back into deep space.
Well, what are we paying the Russians now? Somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 or $70 million per ride? Do you think there's a market for the space station at that ticket price? Well, the Russians have sold one or two, haven't they?
If I could make a comment, I don't think we'll find out if there's a market until we try.
Okay.
I would echo Colonel Collins' comments about the value, the longer-term value of the space station. I have to add, I think it's really shocking to be considering that after the multi-decade and multi-tens of billions of dollars investment in the space station, that now we're talking about what date we're going to re-enter it into the Indian Ocean. I cannot think of another example of a large laboratory investment or a large facility investment that the day it's completed, we start figuring out when we're going to tear it down. If the government cannot find suitable uses for a laboratory in space, then I would echo Colonel Collins' comment. Maybe we should consider turning it over to a private entity and seeing what they could sell space on the space station for.
Thank you for that interesting insight.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.